Descending order? No. No, it's not. It needs attention. So now we will be in descending order. Then I check if it has the greatest common factor. No. 1, -1, and -20 don't have a common factor. Negative leading coefficient? No. The leading coefficient is 1. At this point, I am looking for two numbers whose product is this number. So this is the product. In other words, -20. And whose sum is this number, which is -1. Can anyone give us two numbers whose product is -20 and whose sum is -1? We always start by thinking of the product. If the product is negative, we know we are looking for a positive and a negative number. If the product is positive, we are looking for two positives or two negatives. But the product is negative, so we are definitely looking for a positive and a negative. Can anyone give us two numbers that fulfill both conditions? Their product is -20, and when I add them, I get -1.
-5 and +4.
-5 and +4, awesome. These are the numbers that will help us factor. X minus 5, x plus 4, done. So we factored x squared minus x minus 20 into x minus 5, x plus 4. How did we find those? By determining two numbers whose product is this and whose sum is this number. Let's look at another one. Let's say m squared plus 13m plus 42. Descending order, yes. Greatest common factor, no. Negative leading coefficient, no. I never skip these 3 steps. I make my life easier if I don't ever skip those steps. Special product, no. This is not a perfect square. I should have said this here too. This is not a perfect square. This is, but this is not. So special products do not work here. 1 as the leading coefficient. Yes, 1. Good. Descending order, everything fine. I need two numbers whose product is and whose sum is. So what do you think? What will be the product? Look at what we just did and identify the product for me here.
Product, you mean the addition one? Oh, no,
The
top one, yeah. 42, right?
Excellent. This is the product. And the sum.
Can I see the steps again?
Say it again.
Can I see the steps again?
You mean these? These steps? Are you talking about these steps?
Thank you.
Okay. This is another handout I emailed you if you could download it at least to have it in front of you. These are posted under important supplements. If you read your email, you'll see where to find it. So what is the sum?
13.
Very good. The product is positive, so we are looking for either two positive numbers or two negative numbers. Because when I multiply two positives, I get positive. When I multiply two negatives, I get positive. But now the sum is positive, so this is not an option. I cannot add two negative numbers and get a positive number. So two numbers that have to be positive. Can anyone give us two numbers whose product is 42, positive numbers, and whose sum is 13?
16.
Excellent. Both conditions have to be fulfilled. Therefore, can anyone give us the factored form?
X plus 6 and X plus 7.
Excellent. M plus 6, M plus 7, the variable is not important. Great job. And now let's move on to the most difficult trinomial to factor. This is really the most difficult one. 6y squared minus y minus 1. I go through my steps again. Never skip any step, ever. Descending order? Yeah. Descending order. Greatest common factor? No. 6, negative 1, and negative 1, all three must have a common factor. If they do, I pull it out, but if they don't, I don't. There is no greatest common factor. Negative leading coefficient? No. The leading coefficient is 6. Special product? Any of these? No. This is not a perfect square. Done. I don't care. This has to be a perfect square. It's not. It's negative 1. This is not a perfect square. So done. 1 as the leading coefficient? No. I wish. No. 1 is not the leading coefficient. I'm here at the very last, the most difficult part, type of factoring. Okay. So I'm still looking for two numbers whose product is and whose sum is. The sum does not change. The sum will be the same as before. It was 13 here. It was negative 1 here. The same thing here is negative 1. But the product will not be negative 1 because this is not 1. If the leading coefficient is 1, the product is 42. If the leading coefficient is 1, the product is negative 20. But if the leading coefficient is not 1, the product will be negative 1 times that number. Fine. So now I see the product is negative, so I'm looking for a positive multiplied by a negative. So both conditions have to be fulfilled. I need two numbers whose product is negative 6 and whose sum is negative 1.
Negative 3, 2.
Very good. Negative 3 and positive 2, negative 3 and positive 2. Let's check, of course, but just making sure. This is check, this is check. And what happens next is this. Pay attention, please. I know I keep saying that, sorry. So I'm continuing here, because I don't have room here. 6y squared gets copied. But instead of this, I will copy this. Negative 3y plus 2y. It's the same. It's negative 1y. And then I copy negative 1. If you make the error to go back and combine them and go back here, you're not going to be able to factor. So here's what happens next. It's called factoring by grouping. Let's assume we only have this binomial. What will you factor out? Very good. We factor 3 out. What? 3y indeed. Sorry, I had to get a sip of water. Good. What is left in parentheses? Very good. I refuse to look here before I copy this one more time. Do not uncover. The reason is you may make an error, you may get confused. Copy this because it has to be as a common factor at the end. And now I need a sign and a factor. Sign and factor.
Did you just just find the greatest common factor of 6y and negative 3y, and then just add the rest on, like in parentheses. Is that what happened?
You'll see in a moment. Just give me, I will answer your question in a second. You'll see what happens. And then you'll ask again if it's not clear, okay? So now I uncover this, and here I need a sign and factor. So what would be the sign so that whatever times 2y is 2y, and whatever times negative 1 is negative 1. What should I have here in front? What sign and what factor?
+1.
Very good. We normally don't write the the 1. We write the plus, but not the 1, but I'm going to put it there for everyone to see. And now I have two terms that I'm looking at. This term and this term. They both have a common factor that I have to pull out. Which common factor I have to pull out from these two terms? It goes in front.
How'd you get the plus one there?
I'm sorry?
How'd you get the plus one there?
1 times 2y is 2y. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1.
Gotcha.
So what is the common factor that I have to pull out?
+1.
The common factor is 2y minus 1. It's present in both terms, so I pull it out. And what is left in parentheses from the first term?
3y +1.
Excellent. This is the factor form. And this is how we address this particular issue when the leading coefficient is not 1. We need more examples of this type, and at the same time we need to finalize a factoring by grouping.